Hey everybody, welcome back to Battle Ready Inc. So today is that time we're doing our meta tier list. This is the most subjective video that a YouTuber can possibly make, a trading card game YouTuber can possibly make. If you don't like meta tier list review videos, you should probably turn this off, because if you just get mad at these all the time, then why watch them? But if you really want to see my just thoughts, this is completely subjective, my own personal thoughts. BT8 is a whole different beast than what it was in JP for us English players. And because of that, these tier lists are going to be so opinionated beyond any others. We can look at data from JP and see how they built their lists. But ultimately, the ban list is going to change how we play this format versus anything else. So I just want to stress that this is completely just my personal opinion, and that's all it is. Also, our new memory marker this month is Kokomon. So if you're playing Cherubimon, this is a fantastic memory marker for you. This is handmade out of clay, hand painted as well by my wife. Super adorable. You can find this on our Etsy page, link in the description below. Also there, you can find all of our previous memory markers we've had on the channel, as well as some of our Battle Ready Inc. merch. So here is my completed tier list here. This is what I've got. I'm just going to leave it out there open for everyone to see right now, and we can just go through this deck by deck, and you don't have to worry about skipping to the end to trying to see what the completed thing is. This is it. I've changed this list so many times. I've gone back and over it for days and days now, making changes. And, you know, I still don't know if I'm even happy with it as is, but this is like where my mind is at currently. Most of the things here on the list has stayed pretty consistent where it's at. A few things have gone up and down a little bit here and there. Mostly playing around with the A and B category is I would say the biggest change of what I've gone back and forth on. Some stuff was up here, then was down here, and then stuff that was down here has gone up here. But what's remained consistent is the S tier. This is the first time I've ever put decks in the S tier. That's how serious these two decks are going to be. The Pyildramon, the new version of Imperial, this deck is fast. It is unbelievably fast. Faster than Rookie Rush, faster than any deck I've ever seen in this game. It's a truly terrifying deck. It can win in 3 turns or less. It is that strong. It's unbelievable. And that's why I've got it up here at the very top. Close second though is going to be Security Control. Now this is yellow hybrid Ophanimon mixed with Rapidmon, whichever variant you want to play. Either you can do yellow purple like you did in BT7, but now with Ophanimon and Zwart Defeat in there, or you can drop the purple package and then run the Rapidmon package for yellow support. It's a very versatile deck, but I wanted just to have it as kind of all the different variants. I mean, they're slightly different, each of them, and then just have them as one spot on this. And it's up here in S tier. I think it's that good, honestly. Yellow purple hybrid was very good in BT7, and it doesn't really change much in going into this, except for it just gets more support and it gets significantly stronger. Ophanimon is significant support for this deck. Being able to play this and then bring defeats into the deck, and then defeat is no longer a brick in the hand. You can just evo the defeat right on top of the Ophanimon. No big deal. That's very powerful. Being able to run Rapidmon to just clear your opponent's board is very powerful. Okay, the control aspect of it, in a format where a lot of the hybrid decks are starting to take a back seat and not being so prevalent in the meta anymore. Security Control, every time that happens, Security Control takes over again. Security Control is just always one of those decks that keeps coming back. If you look all the way into BT9, where it's all about actually evoing back up into these big megas with massive evo stacks, Security Control is a big formidable threat in that meta as well. And that's kind of the same thing what we got going on here. It doesn't matter how fast your Pyildramon is, if you're just hitting into all these threats in security that are just removing all of your Digimon off field, it's really hard to win. So I think it goes back and forth on these. It's almost a coin toss, really. When these two decks hit the field, it depends on the a coin flip, or just knowing the matchup and having your deck built to counter that matchup. I think that's going to be your best bet. But both these decks are truly terrifying. Now, A tier is still like, these are strong decks, okay? Absolutely. While yes, these are S tier, can these other decks take them on? Yes, they can. Absolutely. I say it all the time, but it takes just a unbelievable pilot to take a mediocre deck, or a deck that no one thinks is all that great, and then pilot it and then take first place in a massive tournament. I think a good one was like the Lilith Loop decks that started coming out at the very end of BT7 and just really showing people what they were really made of, and taking on these like formidable decks that people thought were kind of unbeatable. Now let's talk about Mass Day first. Mass Day is a big one because of the Eismon limit. I don't truly know where this deck falls anymore. It's no more think of Lilith Loop and in BT7, right? It was just this super fast engine on the bottom level, and then you could just like very easily go into this like big thing, like no big deal. That's kind of like what Mass Daemon was. It was this really like fast Eismon promote sort of deck, and then you could just like throw in a couple yellow level 5s like Magna Angemon, and then throw in Mass Daemon, and then boom, you have the Mass Daemon deck that's like an Eismon Rush sort of deck. You can't do that anymore, and you have to really build decks focused in on Mass Daemon. So, whether you're running the Lady Devies, the Angemons, the Magna Angemons, the Cerberus Mon package, I think this is the time to get super creative with this deck. If you can get something really, really hot and spicy, like creative with Mass Daemon, I think this deck could absolutely jump up into S tier. It's a very, very powerful deck. Being able to play free level 5s, being able to play Cerberus Mon Werewolf mode for free is... I don't even want to think about that, because you can play that for free and then pop a regular Cerberus Mon and gain 9 memory. Do you realize how meta warping that is? That's going to be nuts. If people can really figure out a way to like consistently do that with Mass Daemon, absolutely this deck could punch up in S tier. It doesn't matter if it doesn't have these big powerful cards or speed cards like these two decks have. If you can just consistently gain 9 memory, like, it doesn't matter. Your turns are just going to be so abruptly and abusively powerful with free memory that it's not going to matter. You can still take this deck, and do amazing things with it, even without some of these cards. So let's go back over here. We got Alphamon. Alphamon's finally got its new support and can really take center stage as a deck on its own. Alphamon as a actual Alphamon deck, and not just tossed into some other deck, is finally a thing. This is the beginnings. If you know about BT9, you know that this is like one of 2 most powerful decks of that format of BT9. But we're still in the infancy, okay? We're just in the beginning. This is where it starts. The Alphamon deck starts here. Really cool stuff. Really cool support for Alphamon, being able to attack twice. He's got a great win attacking ability, so being able to do that is very cool stuff. Just the consistency is absolutely wonderful. Really liking where this deck is coming. So I've got it in here as A tier. I think with all the data and the research that people have already done on Alphamon, especially all the way into BT9, I think that knowledge can be applied to BT8 to build very powerful BT8 Alphamon decks, to really make this deck kind of jump up. So originally I had it a little bit lower in the A tier, but I got to thinking about it. I was like, oh, with all that, everything we've learned from BT9, I think we can make BT8 and Alphamon very, very good earlier than it was in JP. Next up, we got Armor Rush. So Vmon Armor Rush here is another great deck for speed. It might not have the power or the removal that some of these other decks have, but just like Imperial and Pyldramon, it's got the speed, okay? Just being able to promote a jamming Vmon, swing at security, Evo into an armor unsuspend with the Duo Tamer, swing again, armor release, and then Evo again, and potentially just continuously evoing and unsuspending and armor releasing, and then using like armor texture to armor release as well and unsuspend, depending on how much memory you have. And in blue, as long as you're running, like your hammer sparks and things like that, not a big deal, not too difficult to get a lot of extra memory in blue if your deck is built for it. So that the speed on armor release is just, it's scary. Okay, if decks aren't being built to like with blockers in them. I know, talking about blockers again, blockers might make a comeback this format. We'll see. But if they don't have ways to fend off these armors and they can just attack over and over and over and over in a single turn, a single Digimon can attack repeatedly, these decks will be unstoppable if you don't have a way to deal with them. So I think the speed on this one is going to bump it up super high into A tier. Speaking of very fast decks, we've got Blue Hybrid. I've got the Azulon here, but this is to mark this version of Blue Hybrid, okay? This is basically the winner of BT7 for Blue Hybrid was the Azulon variant. I'm so happy that it worked out that way. I called this like before BT7 ever started. I was like, Azulon was the way to go, and people thought I was stupid. But here we are, won so many tournaments, so many Digifests and things like that. Blue Hybrid Azulon is very powerful. It's very fast, but also like stun heavy, so we can stun a lot of these other decks that are doing things. The only issue that makes it lower on the list is the stun aspect. You gotta have targets to stun. And so with armors just being able to promote up out of raising area and then just start going to town, doing all of its shenanigans all in one turn, it's hard to stun it at that point. So basically you have to rely on your security to do much of anything, and that's not how you play Blue Hybrid, is to rely on your security. There's a lot of nice things that can hit in there, but it's not the way you're going to win. So Armor Rush, I think, beats it out, and then same for Pyldramon. I think it's just too fast. That it outpaces this Blue Hybrid. So both of these decks are just much faster than this one is, and it just can't counter these two because it can't stun them. So it's going to drop it lower on the list than them. Now we got Darugamon here. I finally bumped it up to A tier. It was down in B tier last format. But again, Alphamon's getting all this new X antibody support. But you know what? It's X antibody support that just kind of also doubles a little bit as Alphamon support. A lot doubles as Alphamon support, but it also is good for just pure X antibodies. So you can just throw these cards into your Darugamon decks and just have more X antibody consistency, just having more targets to throw underneath your Evo stack. Very good stuff. So I think now it's up here in A tier. We did see it top without that support, but with that support, I think that the consistency of it is just so much better now. And again, this is just the beginnings of what's to come in BT9. This deck is so cool in BT9, the decks. So this deck basically forms into to Death X, Dexmon, and all of that shenanigans. This deck will morph into an absolute monster. Okay, like literally, it's terrifying what this deck will turn into. So this is still the infancy. Well, I guess it's our rookie stage of it. This is set 2 with this now. So very excited to see what comes of this format. And then another one like right up there with it is going to be Black War Greymon. Fan favorite. Everyone loves Black War Greymon. He is like one of the OG edge lords. He's super cool. I mean, there's not much to say. The consistency on this deck is like astronomical. One of the best things about the BT9 decks is the X antibodies is the consistency. You can play a whole deck dedicated to like one Digimon, but it's like a whole bunch of different versions, like a whole bunch of Greymons, a whole bunch of Metal Greymons, you know what I mean? And that's kind of what this deck is doing. It's a whole deck dedicated to all these different Greymons and Agumons, so you can use cards like Nokia. We know how powerful Nokia is. We know how powerful she is on TCG Player and going through the roof on price. Has Marcus at its disposal to gain it free memory. Like the deck is very, very good. It's got great consistency pieces. It's got great DP boosters in the form of like promo Agumons. We've got all the Greymons, so many Greymons to choose from. Like the deck has the tools at its disposal to do whatever it wants. It's a very, very powerful, very consistent deck. Like the consistency for a deck that has to evo all the way up into a mega, I don't think there's any other on this list that has the consistency that Black War Greymon is going to have. So just be on the lookout for this. Now again, this is its infancy. We also get in BT9, we get more support for it in the form of Gaiamon, and it just takes this deck to just like up to 10. So this is, again, the beginning stages of it. It's going to be even more exciting next set. Next, we got Cherubimon. Cherubimon's basically still kind of just doing a lot of the same stuff here that it was doing before. I think it's still awesome, though. Purple's got some great cards, just all around generic cards that work really wonderful for it. It's doing a whole lot of what's it's still doing as it is. You can just evo into a Cherubimon, pop it, and then bring out all these rush targets, and then just like speed is going to be the game. It's either, if you can't just control like nobody's business, you got to be able to have speed, and Cherubimon can have some serious speed as long as it's got the decent draws. I think it can be a little bricky at times, and you know what's not bricky? Basically all these other decks up here are not bricky, so that's going to be why it's a little further down here. It's just because it might even work its way back down into B tier, but I'm okay with at least putting it towards the end of A tier, okay? Just for now. But it's got the speed when it pops off. Next, we got our Red Hybrid package here, and Red Hybrid I think is going to be in a really good position because if one of the main decks of the format is Security Control, Red Hybrid has Aldemon, and that basically just instantly makes this deck a competitive meta rogue. I don't know what you want to call it, but the fact that it can hard counter one of the most powerful decks of the format instantly makes it like pretty solid. Now, where it's going to fall short is against the Pyodramon deck, because the Pyodramon deck again is so fast that it's going to outpace this deck. But this has a great matchup against this, but a bad matchup against this. So that's why it's in A tier, but it's at the bottom of A tier, because if one of the best decks of the format wasn't Security Control, I'd probably have to throw it down into B, because it does have consistency issues. Okay, it's just how it is. If you've played it, you know what I mean. But it's still a very solid, very powerful deck. If you get the right pop off, it can go very quick and it can be super aggressive. But if you don't get into the right combination, early on, it can struggle a little bit. And then Mastamon, we've already talked about. This is just the unknown. I just don't know where to put it. I'm going to keep it's in A tier somewhere. If I had to guess, it's in A tier somewhere. If someone can figure out the deck and make it like some crazy Cerberusmon loops actions or something like that, God, if you can figure out a way to loop Cerberusmon multiple times in one turn, this deck will probably be at the very top of S tier. So to be determined on this one. All right, jumping down to B tier here. I did have to move green down to B tier. This is like green Christmas. I think that's basically the most powerful form of green that we saw. It's got the most consistent tops, or top cuts out of all the different green builds we've seen. But it still has the issue of it can be a little bricky at times. Its best tamer is JP, and it only has 4 copies of it. So if you don't get your JPs, it really sucks. So anytime a deck is super dependent on 4 cards, that's a real big bummer. Okay. But I still think it's a good deck. Again, against Security Control, I think it's got a pretty good matchup against Security Control. Like stuff like Ancient Beetlemon, just being able to trash the top card of Security without actually even checking it is pretty good. Being able to Atomic Inferno on like a rookie, like a Flamemon, getting Atomic Inferno, and then just like, I'm going to punch in for 2 checks against Security Control. Like, what's the worst that can happen? I hit into an 8-cost option and they delete my rookie that I used a 1-cost option on. Like, who cares? That's not that big a deal. That's not a big resource loss. It just struggles against a lot of these other decks that are in the format. And then we've got the Magna Garurumon. blue hybrid deck. Unfortunately, yeah, it's down to B tier. Basically, this is about where it fell at the end of BT7, was down here in B tier. Just the Azulong package, I think, was just better. It's just faster, more powerful overall. And then this having to use like hand resources with Koji to bring it out, things like that. Like, you could do some really cool stuff like putting a Metal Garurumon or a Magna Garurumon underneath as an inheritable with the Koji in going into this, and then being able to bounce megas. That was really cool. But again, that's like using like your resources to do that, your hand resources to do that. Never felt really good. So he is down here. Next we got Shivamon, which is a pretty cool deck, honestly. It can do some really powerful things. As long as your Digimon are all suspended, your opponent can't activate options. That's really awesome. That hits a decent amount of decks. If you also play the Argomon, the Mega Argomon that suspends all your opponent's tamers, like that shuts down just a massive amount of decks in the format. Now the issue is the best decks that it hits are the decks from last format. And so those decks have already kind of taken a step down, so those decks aren't going to be played as much. So yeah, you got a really strong counter to this second tier deck. Okay, you're not actually countering the best decks of the format, and at that point, like, what do you do? Sure, it's going to counter security control, but it's only going to counter part of it. Like, you're not going to stop all that recovery that it's doing, all those options triggering insecurity, that sort of thing. So yeah, it's not gonna shut down like the most important part of this deck. The fact that you're hitting these options in security and these security effects are triggering. So those still go off. So yeah, the Shivamon is cool. It can do some really powerful things to some of these other like lower tier A tier, or yeah, low end A tier decks, but it doesn't really do much against these high tier decks. So that's why it's down here in B tier. It's a pretty cool rogue deck. It has its uses here and there, but not against everything. Next we got Sylphimon. This is like a Sylphimon Rossenmon deck. I've seen it a little bit. I think DPP channel has it featured on their channel. Can do some really, really bananas interesting things. But we never really saw it do much in JP, and again, we don't use JP too much, but we do it as a little bit of a guide, and honestly, like, the deck never did anything against any of these decks, so unfortunately got to put it down in B tier, on the lower end of B tier a little bit. I think it's got some really cool control elements to it, which can do great things. Like, this deck just absolutely murders armors. Being at DP reduction is armor's biggest weakness, because even if the top armor releases, that DP minus stays and it applies it to the Vmon, and then the Vmon gets deleted. So DP minusing absolutely decimates armors for sure. But again, like, that's one deck out of a bunch. So most decks in this format either A, aren't going to leave their stuff out in the open to get deleted, or B, they're going to be like hiding and raising, or B, they're going to be so fast that it doesn't matter anyway. They're just going to promote up, do all their crazy shenanigans, and then it doesn't matter if you delete them afterwards, because they're just going to wait and do it a second time, and you're just like screwed at that point. So yeah, Sylphimon, pretty interesting, but gonna have to keep it kind of in lower B tier. Next we got Musketeers, Purple Rush, BL Starmon package. That's about what this is. I think the Purple Rush BL Starmon was basically gonna be your best version of Musketeers. I think that's the final version that people have settled on. That's the fastest, the most consistent. And that's just kind of where it falls, is unfortunately way down here. It's really, really kind of taking a beating at this point. Honestly, it could actually be a little bit higher. It's got some really nice security control elements to it, which hit a lot of these decks very nicely. And it's also got the speed. So honestly, maybe I was wrong about this one. Maybe we could move it up. We'll probably move it up here towards the top of B tier. Because yeah, it's got a lot of the best things. It's got the speed, it's got the control. It's basically, like, in a way, I know this is a stretch, but in a way it's like a combination of the two S tier decks, if you want to think about it like that. But again, it doesn't have quite the consistency that these other two, like control. It doesn't matter if you have consistency or not. If you just keep controlling the board either by recovering a bunch or deleting your opponent's Digimon. It doesn't really matter. And then this has got such crazy speed, but it also has like insane consistency because of all the searchers it plays and all the like the new Vmons, and you can play the Davises and things like that. The consistency of this is going to way outpace the consistency of this. While they're both fast, the consistency just isn't there for this one. Next we got Lilith Loop. I've got to put it down here. Now maybe there's something I'm missing. There certainly could be something I'm missing here, but I think with Eismon getting limited to 1, you lost a huge portion of what makes this deck so good. Like going scatter mode and then like swinging in, having scatter mode deleted or delete it yourself with your option cards, and then filling up your trash so fast for Lilith, but then also being able to just play those Eismon out for free, evoing into the next thing like a Cerberusmon, and then playing out the werewolf mode and popping it, and then being able to go into Lilith and then like recycling back all this stuff was very good. But the second your scatter mode dies over and over and over, and you just never have any Eismons to play for free, like at that point, what is your goal there? You have to evo up into another Eismon scatter mode or hard play a scatter mode. I just don't think the plays are there anymore without the Eismon package. I think this just the deck is definitely fallen in a very, very like low manner. Like, can you still do some really cool things? Absolutely. But I just don't think it's going to have the speed that it had before. The speed it had before was very good. Again, I don't think it's going to be as fast as Pyodramon. I don't think it's going to be as fast as a Zulongmon without Eismon and being able to like go promote on top of Eismon. It's all these other decks are going to outpace it. And also Jesmon, like I kind of amusing that they end up together. They both lost important pieces this format, and they both end up basically at the bottom of B tier because of it. Took some major consistency hits here. And anytime this deck has already been slow, it's notoriously slow. Trying to get into the right pieces is always just an issue. And then now that you're doing like your Huckmons and you're hard playing your Huckmons to search, you lost 3 targets. Over half of your level 5s are now gone to be able to hit off of. So now you're going to reveal all these other level 5s that you're using to supplement, and they're all going to get revealed off of your Huckmon, and you can't add any of them, and they got to get bottom decked. So the consistency of this one's hurts really bad right now. Next, we've got our C tier. Both Bonds decks are down here. The fact that you have to trash your security just really hurts. Trashing your security against Pyodramon Imperial is not what you want to do by any stretch of the imagination. And then, like, Ophanimon here, like the deck can just heal so much that it doesn't, like, you're going to be trashing your own security and going into these really cool combo pieces or these really powerful pieces for like 1 turn, and then you're just not going to be able to clear enough security to matter against the Ophanimon deck. Next we got the new Malomyotismon. I think this deck is really cool. I definitely am intrigued to try it out and build some decks using the new strategy. The new Tamer is really cool. Being able to play Malomyotismon for free is wild. What a wild thing to be able to do. Just play a Malomyotismon for free, a Mega for free. Very powerful stuff. Now it does require some setup and some triggers to go off to get that. Anytime you have to have like a specific setup for things, a deck I think suffers. Okay, it requires too much setup, takes time for okay payoff. Like the payoff is pretty good, but against a deck that's got over here sitting at 9 security and just it's going to delete your Malomyotismon immediately after you pass turn. Like what's it matter? And then a deck that's going to outpace you while you're trying to get this set up, what's the point? And then Diaboromon, same deal, requires a lot of setup. When it pops off and is terrifying. But like things like Rapidmon don't care. He's gonna like, okay, delete all your tokens. So like it's not gonna matter. And then Pyodramon's going to outpace you. Armor's is going to outpace you. You're going to play out all those tokens. I'm going to bring out an Zulongmon, gain 10 memory, and then punch you for 10 security. So don't do that against a Zulongmon. So yeah, poor Diaboromon. And then Machinedramon, I did want to go ahead and at least throw it on here. It has its times. It can do some really cool stuff like the Kaiser Nail combos. If you don't know what I'm talking about, definitely check my my deck profile for Machinedramon. But it's a really cool deck. It can do some really cool stuff. It's gonna get more things to choose from. The new Metal Greymon, it can use that. It's a really cool card, very powerful, being able to attack your opponent's unsuspended Digimon. Just more names, more level 5 names to use. Things like that. It's a cool deck. I don't know what to say. Now I've got a couple cards here in the bottom here that I did not put on the list. Rasen Fury Mode is an accidental put on here, but he goes into the Sylphimon deck. He's part of the Sylphimon deck. And then Creepymon, I think, is a very, very powerful card. I just don't know where it fits. Like purple good stuff. I mean, where do you put Creepymon? So maybe there's something to figure out there. Maybe there's a deck that I'm just missing. If you know a really great deck that this could really go in and can compete with these major decks, definitely let me know. I'm really curious about that. And that's going to do it. I know I probably made a lot of people mad. That's just how these videos go. If you made it this far, I definitely appreciate it. Thank you. I hope you liked the video. Please like in the, click the button. If you haven't subscribed and you made it this far in the video, please subscribe. I really appreciate all my subscribers. I can't wait to do another giveaway here soon.